N'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective. It's time for Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla. Stay tuned for insights, impact, and inspiration right here on Channel Africa. Available on the Channel Africa app.
Well, a very good evening and welcome to Africa World Hour. This is Channel Africa. Stay connected to Africa and the world with Channel Africa, the international voice of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Unathi Batyashe, good to be with you this evening, standing in for Tsepiso Makwetla. Of course, watch or listen anytime, anywhere at channelafrica.co.za, on the Channel Africa mobile app and on SABC Plus, or via the DSTV and OpenView audio bouquet. You can also catch us on social media at Channel Africa on Facebook and Channel Africa One on all other platforms. Channel Africa first with the African story globally. All right, as I said, I'm Unathi Batyashe. All right, let's take you now to today's top stories.
Headlines from an African perspective.
Well, South Africa's Human Rights Commission chairperson, Reverend Chris Nissen, says migration has become one of the most polarizing issues globally, increasingly exploited as a political campaign tool while it deepens into a humanitarian crisis. Nissen was speaking at the two-day national conference on human rights and, of course, the border management and responsible migration in Johannesburg, South Africa. The conference forms part of the Commission's constitutional mandate to promote and to protect human rights. Nissen explains.
Migration is undoubtedly one of the most polarizing issues in our modern world, not only in the SADC region, but also on the continent, but also globally. At a political level, it has increasingly become a campaign tool for those seeking to be elected to power. At the humanitarian level, it has become a crisis. Although migration is not a modern phenomenon or challenge, it is as old as humanity itself. The speed, the complexity, and scale with which it now occurs is a modern phenomenon. This is in itself indicative of the complexity of push factors that influence people's decision to migrate.
Well, staying in South Africa, where the Association for Diabetics says that the country continues to face one of the highest rates of overweight and obesity in the world. According to data, nearly 50% of South African adults are overweight or living with obesity. Now, this as the world marks Obesity Day. Elska Rich, registered dietitian and the spokesperson for the Association for Dietitians in South Africa, explains.
Obesity is not simply a lifestyle issue, but it is a complex chronic disease that requires long-term, evidence-based and systemic solutions. South Africa continues to face one of the highest rates of overweight and obesity, where current data indicates that nearly 50% of South African adults are overweight or living with obesity.
Well, also in our top stories, Kenya's Finance Minister John Mbadi says that the country does not expect an ongoing International Monetary Fund staff visit to yield a lending program at this stage, with talks currently focused on more technical details. Chanduko Ligege has the details for us.
The team from the fund's headquarters in Washington arrived in Kenya last week and is expected to conclude the visit later this week. Kenya's government has formally requested a new support program after its previous $3.6 billion deal ended last April, but officials say they have not currently factored IMF funding into this year's budget.
Latest figures show around 200 international oil tankers are now stuck in the Gulf after traffic through the Strait of Hormuz ground to a halt. Now, the halt comes as the conflict in the Middle East continues. Owners are waiting to see whether it's safe to move through one of the world's most important oil shipping routes. The BBC's Andy Verity has those details for us.
The latest is the intelligence we have from Lloyd's List Intelligence, who of course are specialists in this sort of thing, talking about 200 oil tankers being stationary, 60 stuck inside the Gulf. Some of those are at anchor, some of those are at sea. But what's interesting about it is the proportion of the oil supply that it is. So we've got something like 200 oil tankers. 60 of those are giant crude carriers. They carry 2 to 4 million barrels of oil. And that's a big chunk of supply. It's about 8% of supply. So until that frees up, it's going to continue to put upward pressure on the price of oil.
And finally, Iran has continued to carry out attacks with missiles and drones shot down as they headed towards countries including Turkey, Israel, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. NATO air defenses destroyed a missile passing through Iraqi and Syrian airspace as it approached Turkey. A large explosion has been reported in Tehran, where Israel said it had begun broad-scale strikes. Now, the BBC's Barbara Plett-Usher has the details for us.
Qatar says it was targeted by 2 ballistic missiles. One was successfully shot down. The other hit the Al Udeid airbase. Late last night, very loud bangs shook Doha, and ground-to-air missile interceptors were seen being launched. U.S. diplomatic missions have also been coming under attack. In Dubai, the U.S. consulate was hit by a drone strike, which caused a fire. Again, no injuries were reported. The Americans have closed their embassies in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Beirut.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
Let's stay then in the Middle East and get you into this conversation, just having come off the back of Iran continuing to carry out those missile and drones shot down as they headed towards countries including Turkey, Israel, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. That, of course, report earlier on was with Barbara Plett-Usher. As the war rages on in the Middle East, global analysts or global affairs analyst and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, Michael Bochevkiv, saw that the Gulf states have neglected to learn on lessons on Ukraine's interception of Iranian drones. He now joins us on the line to walk us through what he means by that. Michael, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, before we actually talk about today's developments, as we saw, of course, those press releases and press statements that were made at the Pentagon in the United States. Talk to us about what you mean when you say that the Gulf states missed a teachable moment. Just go through some of your reports and what you're seeing currently in the Middle East.
Yeah, sure. Good to be with you. I'm talking to you today from Washington, D.C. Well, there are a couple of things here that are pretty extraordinary. Number one is that as you know, the war in Ukraine has been going on for 4 years, and almost from day one, Russia has been using lots and lots, thousands of Iranian drones, cheaply made, mass-produced, always being evolved to avoid interception techniques to fire at Ukraine. And Ukraine has developed incredible technology to bring them down. It doesn't bring all of them down, but it brings the majority down, including missiles, but not with not with Patriot missile systems, and certainly not with F-16. So they use pretty cheap technology. I mean, I've seen it myself. I've had drones over my roof in Odessa, and I've seen mobile teams on the back of pickup trucks basically shooting down these things. And again, the interception rate isn't 100%, but it's pretty close. And it's a real head scratcher, when this has been happening for so long. And Iran is right on the doorstep of these Gulf countries, and yet they have not studied this. In fact, it was just only, I think, a couple of days ago that UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said to the Ukrainians, let's invite your experts to the Gulf and perhaps they can help to deal with this problem. The other thing, if I may quickly, the other head scratcher is these drones. They don't magically end up from Iran on the doorsteps of the Kremlin. They're shipped through pretty traditional means over there, and this is very, very heavy cargo. I find it very hard to believe that the UAE and other Gulf countries did not notice this flow, because again, it's been over 4 years. And, the UAE especially has been laying out the red carpet for Russian tourists, for hugely, fantastically wealthy Russian oligarchs and their yachts, members of Putin's inner circle. And they decided to look the other way. And so, in a way, they're now seeing the consequences of this neglect on both points.
Yeah, and I'm wondering to what extent that will, of course, yield to difficulties for some of these countries. I want to go back to what I earlier said in terms of developments that happened today. We saw, of course, UN Secretary Batyashe, saying that the US and Israel will soon have complete control of Iranian airspace and that operations will last as long as necessary. In strategic terms, what does complete control actually mean? And as you've also, of course, pointed out, noting that Gulf states, particularly the UAE, largely looked away while Iranian, Shahed drones were supplied to Russia, and also just taking some of those teachable moments from what we are currently seeing in Ukraine. What do these statements then, add in terms of what U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has said today?
Yeah, so I question whether they'll have complete control over the skies, because, that is something that is a luxury certainly Ukraine doesn't have. But what we do know is a lot of these drones, they're launched from mobile sites, they can move around. So it's very, very difficult to eliminate them. So I'm not quite sure what they mean by that. The other point here, sorry, you got cut off a bit when you were asking your question, but I think I pieced it together, is you mentioned Turkey. And my goodness, a missile being shot in their direction raises a lot of issues here. It's the first NATO country, as far as I know, to be targeted. But secondly, that region is like the Gulf states region, is a very, very busy corridor for air traffic from Asia to Europe and back. So if one by one these air corridors are being eliminated, that's a huge blow, not only, of course, to tourism and business travel, but to the world economy. But I assess the consequences of these bombing raids by the U.S. and by Israel, that the Iranians have the capability, they should know this, to strike at Gulf countries. And I think that's part of the Iranian strategy, is that if you hit enough Gulf countries, there will be pressure on the United States to somehow bring an end to this war. And let's not forget, many of them had declined to give the United States overflight rights for these targeted strikes as well. So it's a very, very complicated situation, which could spiral even more out of control and which at the moment has no end in sight.
Yeah. Michael, you are breaking up a bit, but I want to just bring this point across, particularly just staying with, the escalation and the military posture that we are seeing. So Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israeli pilots are flying over Tehran and will continue striking with force. Are we looking at a limited campaign here, or, the early stages of a broader war, aimed at permanently weakening Iran's military infrastructure, if that is at all possible?
Well, it's a very good question, but, we have to remember a few months ago, the United States struck very hard at Iran at their alleged nuclear facilities, and they said they totally eliminated it. And yet, the Americans say that a reason for starting this current wave of strikes is that Iran was close to developing a nuclear weapon. So what is the truth here? So it's and even here in the United States, I've got to say, a lot of people are asking questions, including, as they should on Capitol Hill, what was the rationale for starting this war, and why wasn't Congress consulted? So It's difficult to say what the strategy is, what the end game is, or the off ramp, but we know from history, do we not, that once you enter the Middle East quicksand, it's very, very difficult to get out of it. And day by day, almost hour by hour, this war is escalating, and having a heavy blow, as your reporting indicated earlier, to the world economy.
Yeah. And I mean, just staying with, that spillover, the regional spillover and the security around the Gulf, do you see Gulf states quietly coordinating air defense and intelligence, sharing behind the scenes, even if public rhetoric remains very cautious as we are witnessing at the moment?
Yeah, they are, because I've already been seeing in the past 48 hours or so Gulf countries coordinating efforts to create safe air corridors for evacuation or repatriation flights. These are civilian flights. So that's a good sign, because we have had divisions in the Gulf, let's not forget, between Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. But they do seem to be working together. If I may, the other interesting thing that is coming out here is that with the war happening, of course, Iran is in very desperate straits. One wonders, where is Russia? Yeah. They're a key ally. They have an agreement. And, Russia was absent, away on leave when Venezuela was attacked by the United States, Syria as well. So I think there are a couple of things happening there that are very interesting in the kind of general security architecture, is that state allies of Russia are going to see that, the Kremlin is not a reliable partner. And secondly, they have also seen, I think, that their technology, the S-300s or other defense capabilities they have provided by the Russians aren't very reliable either. It's going to be a blow to Russia in that regard, too.
Yeah. And I mean, Iran, just talking about Russia, Iran has been accused in the past of supplying, drones to Russia, as you also allude to. I mean, could Tehran then, deepen military coordination with Moscow at this point in time? And what would that mean for Kyiv if we have to juxtapose this with Ukraine?
Yeah, well, let's not forget that it's a two-way street when it comes between Iran and Russia's bilateral relations, military relationship. Russia has actually been providing Tehran, according to a recent leaked report, with quite advanced technology for shoulder-fired missiles that can hit with quite a bit of impact and quite a bit of altitude. So it's a two-way street there. But I would hope that this would also encourage, if I can use that word, Gulf countries and other countries that have been, again, laying out the red carpet for Moscow to say, okay, enough is enough, and we need to stop this illicit flow. As for the war in Ukraine, I do hope that somehow this encourages the West, but especially the Gulf countries, to stand up and speak out in defense of Ukraine, because they see what evil empires is backing the war in Ukraine. From day one, the clerics in Iran, these fanatics, have been backing Russia, supplying them with very advanced drone technology. And I got to say, too, that, the drone technology that I hear day in and day out when I'm in Ukraine flying overhead has evolved a lot, to the point where they're faster. Yeah. They have graduated, if you can, from the sound of a moped to a jet engine, and they power a lot more punch, and they're able to evade interception methods more skillfully. So they need to put an end to this. And, any state, whether you're a Thailand, Cambodia, whether you're Burundi, which just voted against a Ukrainian resolution in the UN, other states as well, that cares, an iota, also South Africa, of course, about territorial integrity, sovereignty of states, that they should stand up in Ukraine's defense and say, no, you cannot just come in illegally and grab territory and create war and do war crimes on an industrial scale. So hopefully people will come to their senses, because if this is allowed to happen, it just gives more incentive to autocrats and even non-state actors to ignore rules-based international order and grab territory and worse.
Yeah. And I wonder, we have, of course, talked about Ukraine, we've talked about Russia, we've talked about the US, Israel. How might China interpret this moment? I mean, does this prolonged instability in the Gulf, as we've been hearing, complicate perhaps China, Beijing's energy security calculus? I mean, have you looked at all into that?
Yes. In fact, we had an indication over the past 24 hours. China has said they're sending an envoy to the Middle East to help push along the mediation efforts. They are very, very concerned because they get a lot of their energy from that part of the world, specifically from Iran. So they need to hop onto this very quickly. And I also noticed that Mr. Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister, has issued a strong statement condemning Israeli and U.S. attacks on Iran. Look, let's face facts here. Up until the strikes happened, there was a long supply line, illicit supply line between Iran and China for oil that traveled on ghost ships. And, that's another thing that the West needs to deal with, is to stop that. Of course, we also have a whole giant fleet of Russian ghost ships as well, shipping oil against international sanctions. But China, very concerned, of course, about what's happening because they cannot afford a prolonged war that will cut off a key channel for their energy.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you so much for your insights. Really do appreciate it, of course, as we look on at this particular conflict, ongoing airstrikes there by the US and Israel, against Iran. That was, of course, a global affairs analyst and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, Michael Batyashe, for us.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
OK. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Nighttime radio, just the way you like it, on Channel Africa, where the night comes alive.
Oh, welcome back. You're still with Africa World Hour with me, Unathi Batyashe, standing in for Tsepiso Makwetla. Let's continue then to look at what is unfolding in the Middle East. For years, Dubai has sold itself as a sanctuary, glamorous, stable, insulated from the turbulence of the wider Middle East. But in recent days, missiles intercepted in UAE airspace have shaken that perception. Residents, including high-profile expats, have described hearing explosions overhead, yet many also insist that they still feel safe. Joining us now is South African national resident residing in Dubai, Tsepiso Makwetla. Tsepiso, a very good evening to you. I cannot even imagine what is going and unfolding on in Dubai. Firstly, let's perhaps start here. I mean, where... in South Africa are you from, and how did you find yourself living in Dubai?
Okay, I want to say good evening, everybody. First of all, I'm from South Africa, originally from Amanskraal. There's a place called Surman. That's where I'm originally from. And from there, I've actually came to Dubai last year, January 25th. So for me, it's been well over a year actually since I've been this side. And so far, Dubai is actually having things under control a bit, but we're just waiting for more updates and to basically see how everything's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on Saturday, of course, the world woke up to those US and Israeli airstrikes in Iran. Take us back to when you first realized that something was wrong. I mean, what did you hear? What did you see when some of those explosions located you in Dubai?
Yes. So in Dubai, I'm staying in a place called Damak Hills. It's still in the city, but it's more of like a quiet neighborhood. It's more of like a family-oriented neighborhood, not like the skyscrapers around Marina and
Yeah.
other places like Jumeirah. So what happened was we first had the sounds on the 1st of March from our side, and then the time was roughly around 8 to 9 p.m., approaching 11. That's when we also got the emergency from basically from our phone, right? We got the emergency alerts that says stay inside the houses, missiles are being intercepted, make sure you're staying safe, don't go outside. And from our side, we're actually starting to hear sounds. Our windows were shaking. It felt like they were basically next to us, like how the bombs were so loud. We thought like they're just happening right on top of our heads. That's when I actually went outside and just wanted to see myself. That's when I started to see the lights.
Yeah.
That's when I basically saw that, the bombs are being intercepted. So far, from the first day, right, from my end, which was the 1st of March, there's literally around 165 missiles just from that day alone. And they intercepted all of those missiles. And secondly, there were like 500 drones. So from those drones and the missiles, there was something called debris. It's like basically when they're intercepting the missiles, pieces fall from the sky. And then those pieces, that's when they fell on Marina and Jumeirah. And that's when a couple of people got hurt. From the first day, there wasn't any casualties, but 60 people were injured, mainly because of the flames that came from the debris that fell from the sky. And today, since then, there's been well over 1,000 drones and around 180 missiles that have been intercepted.
I mean, yeah, we've been hearing, from various accounts, in terms of how residents have been hearing what they describe as you're describing: fighter jets, loud explosions, interceptors, debris falling, as you're saying, in the marina. I mean, how close did it feel to you? Was there a moment of confusion, perhaps even not understanding what is happening? I mean, where were you certain that it was, in fact, missile interceptions, as an example?
Yeah, I was definitely certain, mainly because I would see the lights in the sky. Like, especially when it happened, I would just see the lights going on. And even in the morning, like the following day after the 1st of March, the 2nd of March, in the morning, I even shot a video on my TikTok, right? You would see the flames, you would see the smoke, the birds were flying everywhere, and the sounds were very loud. Like, our windows were shaking. So even if you're sleeping, sometimes those sounds alone can wake you up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And talk to us about, daily life. How significantly has it changed? Schools, malls, businesses, meetings. What's the general mood on the ground now? We've also, of course, seen that there has been some form of communication from the South African government to those that are now living in Dubai, like yourself, to register on the South African registry so that they can locate you. But give us a sense in terms of how everything is now currently.
Okay, so I have a daughter who's actually schooling here. My daughter is like 2 years old. She's at a nursery, which is also a school. So they basically stopped kids coming to school, and they're now doing online learning. And secondly, they have closed all the public spaces, like your global village and parks and, swimming pools that are public. They've closed those parts. And right now, even if you go to the malls, like people are not coming out yet, right? You could literally see when you go to the mall, it's literally less number of people that you see in the malls. It's like, the parking spaces is literally almost empty. Dubai has heavy traffic, but right now when you go on the roads, the traffic is not as as severe as it used to be. Like only a few people are the ones actually going inside their houses. But the second thing I want to note is that after the first day of the missiles, everybody just immediately went to the following day. People went to the supermarkets. We went to the supermarkets to get food just to make sure if they do a lockdown, we have food that will last us very long. So when we went to the supermarkets, it was packed. Like the number of people, the lines, it was crazy. Literally, food was getting finished on the shelves, mainly because everybody's just stocking up, mainly because you're trying to be ready if there's going to be a lockdown, because you don't know how long will this whole thing last. And secondly, in terms of the environment, other people are still trying to keep calm. Like myself, I am keeping calm, but there are people who are very much panicking. There are people who, who wish to leave, right? I actually had booked flights for March, and currently for South Africans, we haven't gotten any updates yet in terms of when are we flying. They said that we're going to have updates from the 7th of March in terms of when we can go out the country. And then people from USA and Europe, they're saying from the 7th, they can start flying, and only a small number of people. So for us, for Africa, we're just still waiting for updates.
Absolutely, Thapelo. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Wishing you all the best, and please stay safe. That is Tsepiso Makwetla, South African national residing in Dubai, as we continue, of course, to monitor the developments in the Middle East. All right, back home, the South African Parliament has paid tribute to former Congress of the People leader Mosiuoa Lekoda, describing him as a principled leader who helped shape South Africa's democratic institutions. The spokesperson for the South African Parliament, Moloto Motapo, says Lekoda played a pivotal role in establishing the National Council of Provinces and, of course, advancing constitutional governance in the early years of democracy.
The presiding officers of Parliament have learned with deep sadness of the passing of Mr. Mosiuoa Lekoda, who is the former Member of Parliament, veteran of the liberation struggle and leader of the Congress of the People. Parliament remembers and salutes Mr. Lekoda's historic role as the founding chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. As the first chairperson of the council, Mr. Lekoda played a pivotal role in shaping the identity, ethos, and institutional culture of this new Chamber of Parliament. His leadership contributed to laying the foundations for the NCOP as a forum where national legislation is scrutinized.
All right, of course, those news coming in the early hours of this morning that, in fact, Mosiuoa Gerald Patrick Lekoda, born on the 13th of August 1948, died on the 4th of March 2026. He was 77 years old. And, of course, we continue to take tributes to the passing of Mr. Lekoda, and those have been many people, in fact, remembering the legacy of the leader or co-founder, spokesperson for the South African Parliament, Moloto Motapo, earlier on. For a look there now at Lekoda's legacy, we're now joined on the line by COPE Acting President Teboho Loate. Mr. Loate, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. Of course, sad news this very day, remembering, of course, the life and the times of Mr. Lekoda. Do you remember your first time, in fact, meeting Mr. Lekoda? Just talk us through your impressions of him then, and, of course, as we get your reaction to his passing this morning.
Thank you very much and good evening. I must say a dark cloud is hanging over our heads. First, as a Congress of the People for the loss of a leader in the caliber of Mr. Lekoda. Second, I think South Africans, if they look at the current situation and flash back to his role in South African politics, the same cloud is hanging over us, because he's one of those people who is irreplaceable. We will always remember what he had said, what he has done, and we will always remember as a reflection to our lives today.
Of course, we also remember Mosiuoa Lekota and how, as the co-founder, of course, of COPE, really changed the political landscape, particularly when following those 2009 elections, really bringing some form of a political climate change in terms of opposition parties and coalition, etc. But speak to us then about how you think South Africa will remember him, particularly in terms of how he, shaped that political climate. I mean, his famous, what they now call divorcing the ANC in 2008 over matters of principle, and in today's political climate of coalitions, how COPE then still stands by that original, breakaway as a necessary act for South African democracy. How should we frame that time for not only COPE, but also the late Mr. Lekota?
Truth be told, that at that time of the breakaway or the divorce, breaking away from the ANC was something unthought of. Many of us, and many people, had always thought that the ANC would remain as a powerful force in the South African politics. And we need to be honest that everybody believed. So this was something unheard of, that a person of the caliber of Unathi Batyashe, standing for principles that he believed in, because in the first place, his view was that ANC has derailed from the objectives of for the freedom of the people of South Africa, and he led that breakaway. Many of us, as you know, he started first by saying he's saving divorce papers. But, the character of his leadership and his belief in the South African politics after that breakaway, you will always find in the way he conducted himself and argued in Parliament. Many of the things that he said in Parliament, if we sit back and reflect, you will realize that they were true. I can cite about 2, if not 3, but there are so many of them. If you think about his warning to our country about illegal immigrants, remember he even gave an example to say in other countries, when you go there, the country has to know what is your purpose of coming into their space. But in South Africa, we just let things, go as it is today. Now we are dealing with all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
The second issue is that Mr. Lekota, he's one of those people that in 1994, when South Africa was entering its new phase, he was one of the people who crafted the democracy that we all were looking for. And you would find that in the manner in which he was interpreting some of the issues based on the Constitution. So you can say he was a constitutionalist. I can give you an example that during that debate of on land, he managed to explain Section 25 of our Constitution and what it means. And because he believed in a South African nation, he always questioned the issue that if we in ourselves, talking about our people, but then excluding ours, he used to ask the question, who is our people? So that we should define what we mean, because he believed in a South African nation more than anything else. So these are the things that we will remember him with, and I think we need to take into account and make sure that those ideals that he had, they don't die away with him.
Yeah. I mean, when we also look and reflect on his life, I mean, he played such a significant, role in the heart of South African politics, also given just his rich history as an activist, as a young man. He was also a steadfast advocate for non-racialism. I mean, even when it was politically unpopular. I want to ask this question, though, with COPE now outside Parliament following the 2024, general elections. What does this moment mean for COPE? I mean, how will you as COPE ensure that, his specific value survives him in an increasingly polarized political landscape, changed landscape, I must say, especially now as we go into the local government elections. But more importantly, how does this moment, make you as COPE ponder in terms of reckoning as a party, even maybe perhaps a calling for reinvention? What are you taking from today's loss?
Look, today's loss to us is a huge loss. And one thing certain is that Mr. Lekota has left, a vacuum. He's that type of a leader that cannot be replaced because he was walking in big shoes. So for Congress of the People, I think at the moment, because we have been in a process to try and rebuild our party, given all the challenges that we have had, the first thing that we have looked for is that we need to make sure that we take our members to congresses, because Mr. Lekota, before his demise, he had indicated that he would have loved to leave COPE, officially at the Congress. Although on the sides we knew that we had plans that he would remain within the politics of the party to give guidance and as well to assist the incoming leadership on giving the right direction so that COPE become relevant in the politics of the country.
Yeah.
So that was a process that was there. That was the plan that we had initially. Unfortunately, his death comes at a time also when there are so many challenges in our country. So it puts also again the biggest challenge to those members of Congress of the People, and even to those that have left the party, because our view has always been that because of certain reasons that occurred in the past, COPE remains a home for its members, its former members, current members, and new members. So our plan is to take this party to congresses so that it stays in and also lead it. We are here is a challenge for us who are currently in the leadership, but we would really welcome to have also fresh minds, new minds that can come and steer this ship in the direction that Mr. Lekota would have wished that this party should take.
Yeah. And very quickly, as we wrap up our conversation, maybe perhaps take us into your confidence in terms of just those final moments for Mr. Lekota, particularly, given the challenges internally for the party, but also having lost all those parliamentary seats in the 2024 elections, his final moments and wishes, not only for COPE, but also for the country. How was he feeling?
Look, we went into those elections. He was already having health challenges. And he was much concerned that he didn't have the energy anymore to be able to put some new life into COPE. And by the way, because even in his time in the UDF, he was an organizer in the UDF, so he had those skills to organize. He always had, one of the things was that he was concerned about the developments and the stories mainly about corruption in government, and that's what he used to emphasize to members of COPE, that by all means we should have leadership that are not prone to corruption. So he wanted a party that had people that can give South Africans hope for a better future. I had discussions with him, and those were his concerns in the main. Most of the time he would point out to all things that were wrong, that were happening. And his wish was that COPE should be in the space that we try and build our country to be a better country.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Pleasure speaking to you, and of course condolences to you and your party. COPE acting president Teboho Loade there for us, just speaking of course following the death of COPE, a co-founder as well, and of course we heard earlier on from the South African Parliament paying tribute to former Congress of the People leader Mosiuoa Lekota, as well as other political parties.
Africa, meet Abedi.
That's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
In Zimbabwe, traditional leaders are at the forefront of restoring their Miombo woodlands, crucial for rural livelihoods and biodiversity. FAO, of the Food and Agricultural Organization, has trained chiefs, headmen, and village heads in sustainable forest management, community accountability, and protection from sexual exploitation and abuse.
Traditional leaders are really central because they are the custodians of land and natural resources in rural communities. So in districts like Muzi and Rushinga in Zimbabwe, they really influence how forests are used and protected. So by empowering them, we strengthen local ownership, we improve compliance with sustainable practices, and ensure that Miombo restoration efforts are really community-driven and long-lasting, which is important.
Renee Chudek, FAO Senior Forestry Officer for Southern Africa.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
All right, let's get into one of our focus interviews for this evening. Tonight, we're joined by a powerhouse of innovation from the heart of the Boerland. Inamandla Wayne Khadebe is not just a top-achieving student in the notoriously tough mechatronic engineering faculty at Stellenbosch University. Inamandla is at the forefront of merging mechanical precision with electronic intelligence to solve real-world problems. For more on what the future of robotics in South Africa is, Inamandla joins us on the line. Inamandla, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi.
Good evening to you as well.
All right, it's a pleasure having you on the show, but you've described yourself as, having a curious mind. What was that specific light bulb moment that made you choose mechatronics? I mean, the blend of mechanical, electronic, and software over a more traditional engineering path. Take us through your mind process.
Well, it's a very long story in a way because I've always loved maths and physics. That was honestly my number one thing, and I also have I'm also very passionate for robotics. I love robots. I love Iron Man. You see, so I was like, why don't I just find a course that I can dive into that, and at the same time, I was like, whoa, mechatronics blend between mechanical, electrical, and software, and it makes me so flexible and so versatile. And for my career objectives, I was like, I want to work with biomedical, I want to work with renewable energy, and I was like, why not I just pick mechatronics, because it has the perfect lineup to exactly what I want and what I want to achieve. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah. I've actually seen the Stellenbosch Engineering building. I mean, it's huge. We know that, Stellenbosch Engineering is notorious for its intensity. As top achiever yourself, what is your personal strategy for mastering these complex modules like control systems, mechatronic design, without burning out, and obviously making sure that you're still very passionate in what you do?
Well, for me, it's like I don't want to stress myself too much. I don't have like a schedule which I strictly follow, and I just prefer to do things. I just prefer to do what I feel like on that specific day. Because if you do something which you want, you're like, I feel like I want to do maths, I want to do like physics, then you are more likely to like enjoy what you're doing and reach that flow state, you see. And I'm not sure, like, to be burnt out, I don't normally get burnt out, because if you love what you do, I just love what I do. I love everything that I'm doing, which burnout just does not exist for me.
All right,
I don't know if I'm just answering.
No, absolutely. So you've spoken about using your skill, to contribute to the betterment of our society. Just maybe share a specific project or even an idea where you see robotics, solving pressing South African challenges. I mean, the list of problems we have in our country is long. What is, just some of those that you've identified?
Well, for one, it's undoubtedly fossil fuels. We've been using fossil fuels for the longest of times. I think it's the main thing which we rely on in this country, and which is why I want to enter field of renewable energy. I've been researching about your solar energy, your wind energy, and all that stuff, which is the reason why I chose Stellenbosch, because in my fourth year I can do a module in renewable energy, which will give me the knowledge, and I in the fields of this thing which I've been researching on, it's hydrogen energy, I believe. And I feel like if I were to enter that and help South Africa divert from fossil fuels, I feel like, one, it will stop load shedding, hopefully, and as well as just become a greener country, because I'm not really fond of fossil fuels.
Not a lot of people can make it into universities or institutions like Stellenbosch, as you have, and congratulations, for that. There are many institutions too that can, really harbor that skill. But what is your one wish in terms of even just people of like-minded young students like yourself wanting to enter the STEM space, just your advice to them? I mean, earlier on you spoke about biomedical engineering too.
I mean, what, like, the advice which I'll give them, right? Do not enter engineering if you are here for the money, if you're here for, I don't know, because your parents told you so. To do something as hard as engineering, you should just have a love and a passion for it. Because I see a lot of people who are like, yeah, they're doing engineering fine, they are smart, but they're not happy to be there. I've seen people like that, and all I can say is just love what you do, have a passion for what you do. People have been telling you that, have a passion and love for what you do. And again, do not think you can make it in this journey alone. You need support from your peers, you need support from your family, you need support from external or from externals. Like for me, I had external support from Africa Tikkun, which actually is the reason why I'm here as well.
Yeah.
You need support.
Yeah,
You know?
and I mean, how important?
That's my advice.
Yeah, how important is that for you? I mean, you've spoken about so many key issues, including, of course, those who find themselves in this space but may not necessarily want to be there. Perhaps they are missing that link. I mean, you speak about mechatronic and you speak about biomedical engineering. I would imagine that even though they're different, somehow you can interconnect, and hopefully you can impact on more research and more innovative ways in which you can use that degree. Do you agree that you can use passion as well as, you know, the research component, the theoretical component to make a living out of this particular sector?
That's a hard one, actually, because there's some people who have told me, like, passion doesn't always pay the bills or things like that.
Absolutely.
So, if ever, like, it doesn't work out for me, like renewable energy and biomedical, I could enter more research areas. Like, but the other goal is to be manager/CEO. You just climb that corporate ladder in companies based on technologies and such, because once you climb that ladder, you are more open to more opportunities. And once you do that, I guess you can give back in a way. Like, my main goal in life is to give back as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's perfectly put. Talk to us about your final year project. I think it says Scripsy. What does that entail in terms of, you know, leaning more towards autonomous vehicles, industrial robotics, and just the impact on research?
Like, for my final year project?
Yes.
Well, I haven't thought that far because, first year and I'm still struggling with these first year concepts. But for my fourth year, well, from what I've researched about and all that, I'm not entirely sure, actually. I haven't thought of that far yet.
No problem. So how have you found first year so far? Have you integrated completely into, you know, the Stelli's way of doing things? I know that the engineering building itself has everything that you need in terms of, just immersing yourself with what's coming out.
Well, I have actually been enjoying it. How has it been so far? Well, besides writing, I've been writing tests every single day of the week, which kind of drains me, but I feel like it just prepares you for the pressures of the real world. So I'm carefully adjusting, and like something that's a reality check for me. It's like everyone in my class has well, in high school, we all had 80s, we had 90s, we were cruising, we were passing. We come to university, things now change. Suddenly you get 0%, you get 40%, those low marks, something which I honestly was not expecting. I think like for my first test, I had like a 40%. But then I was like, nah, this is just a reality check.
No,
those
listen,
who don't adjust eventually fall.
We are rooting for you because the reason I know so much about it is that my daughter was also studying civil engineering at Stellenbosch University. So I know that most of the first year students are told that you only have one weekend to have fun and the rest is dedicated in your schoolwork. But we're really rooting for you, and we can't wait to see what projects you come up with on your final year. But very quickly, as we wrap up our conversation, Inamandla, any advice that you want to say to grade 12s of 2026 that are listening to you now and want to go a similar route?
The grade 12s of 2026. Sometimes in life, things don't always work out. And to tell yourself, for me, I did tell myself I want to do mechatronics. And I came to a point where I was like, let me just apply to just UCT and Stellenbosch. And that is bad because you don't know what God wants for you. And what I would advise you to is just apply to as many universities as you can. Whatever offer you get, please choose the course rather than the university. It's better to do like mechanical engineering adverts than to do something like another lower course in, let's say, UCT. Just go with what you love.
Absolutely.
And if it doesn't work out, always have a plan B. If you have a plan in life, to be honest, you're going to be ready for anything.
All right, fantastic. Inamandla, good luck. We wish you all the best. Pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Inamandla Wayne Khadebe, a standout figure at Stellenbosch University. Can't wait to speak to him in about 3 years' time when he does conclude that degree that he is currently studying towards in engineering at Stellenbosch University. Well, that wraps up then the show Africa World Hour tonight. Thank you so much for your time and for listening. For comments about our show, please send WhatsApp messages or voice notes at 063-406-9126, or you can email us at info@channelafrica.org. Coming up after this is African Diaries with Shayla Ndukumana from Unathi Batyashe and the rest of the team. Thank you so much for your time. Kamnandi.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Conversations that